as there's so many great ones out there. On the other side, Pedro, we've seen him on stream and just seems to be so clinical with the numbers, has made some incredible plays with the maths. We saw that amazing 240 plus the 60 from the Monkey Dories onto that Mega Kangaskhan. None of us saw it coming, but Pedro was playing for it for multiple turns.
And Pedro playing for that mathematical, you know, almost science there. I got a hold of him after Top 4, congratulating him and saying that there's a reason why he's in the finals here with that great mathematical ability. We do also have to bring in a stat for Pedro. Lost in round 1, but hasn't lost in the tournament since. So 13 rounds in a row just in Swiss, where he went undefeated. Then going on with, you know, top 8, top 4, also being undefeated there.
Yeah, losing to that Grimmsnarl, which won in the juniors division. Obviously not the same player, different age division, but it was the deck. And that's really what's the challenge for Gardevoird in the current format, is there are many dark type attacking decks like Charizard EX, Enzoroark, Grimmsnarl, Mega Absol. But even though there is that weakness, they still have a way to victory, and consequently has led both these players to making to the final.
And the most played of those have been that Mega Absol box. Both of these players have been facing their amount of Mega Absol, but yet has come through, and both are sitting here in the finals, having both beat these dark attacker decks that were made to beat them.
Well, last weekend in Las Vegas, Mega Absol box, piloted by Tord Reklev, won the tournament, and consequently the popularity of it, especially amongst those top players, was up at this event. And those top tables were full of them, and the Gardevoird had the matchup down. And it was really the stream game that highlighted how much skill is required for Gardevoird to take down that kind of matchup, as Pedro had one of the best matches of the tournament when we saw him against Yoshiyuki in top 4.
And that is why it was so hard for me to put who I think would actually win this. We've seen Pedro in that top 4 especially, both games coming from the back foot and getting back into it. But I have to admit as well, Sebastian must have had his amount of games during this tournament where he was on the back foot and yet still can't come back. That's what Gardevoird does.
Both these players earning their spots for the World Championship by getting into the top 4. But there's more on the line here in this final. The glory of being the champion, as well as $25,000 going to the winner. There will be that CP in conjunction with it, but with the automatic invite to Worlds, that's purely just going towards things like travel awards. So these players really want to get going, as they seem to be putting their prize cards out. So let's get ready for the finals here. It's 3 Monkey Dory. My goodness. LAIC, your world final is kicking things off.
Kicking things off indeed. Triple Monkey Dory for Sebastian Lashmet in the prize cards. And there's going to be such a nasty surprise waiting once he gets to search his deck.
The crowd has gone wild for that, as Sebastian will be kicking things off, going first. And LAIC final begins now. The Masters Division had over 2,000 players. Now there's 2. Who will take this best of 3 final?
Getting to this finals match here, Mike, we have to remember it's important who gets to go second, who gets to set up first, who gets to set up best. Although already at the offset, Sebastian on the back foot.
Let's talk about the strategy of these decks. Gardevoird, such a well-known archetype in the format now, and it's all thanks to that Gardevoird EX with Psychic Embrace, setting up all of these Psychic type attackers.
Setting up that damage counter, those damage counters on board, as well with that Adrenaline Brain from Monkey Dory, typically working as almost an extra attacker. But if you don't have it, you're going to be behind almost a single attack every single turn. Triple Monkey Dory, Mike, that's 90 damage you're letting go off every single turn, which means that when Pedro moves damage is over, it's just going to stick.
And the other prize cards aren't too great either. That one of Professor Turo's scenario, which could be huge to remove damage from play. Sebastian won't know until this deck search, which he's currently going through. As our players get their first chance to look through the deck, they work out which prize cards they have. Sebastian, with his own unique technique to do so, gets a pretty good grip of what's missing. And I wonder if we'll see a reaction at some point soon as he recognizes they all seem to be missing.
There are not going to be any monkeys. And as you're saying with the Professor Turo scenario and the prize cards as well, yeah, no defensive tools. No defense allowed here. The technical machine devolution is there technically, but that's not going to be a defensive tool when you don't have Monkey Dory.
One thing that's quite unique when you prize all three of a certain card is you can often miss it in your prize check, because as you're going through, you don't see one of them to then go, oh, there's only one of three here, so I'm missing two. You're missing all of them, so you might just go straight past it and completely not recognize they're gone. But Sebastian going first here. And what's the difference between going first and second in this matchup?
As we saw in Pedro's prize cards, there is that technical machine evolution. Typically, when you're playing Gardevoird, you play Arven, search out a Buddy Puffin or a Nest Ball, attach an energy, and use that technical machine evolution. That is what's so great about going second with Gardevoird. Although we see here from Sebastian, searching out a Frillish, that's also another great attacker when going second.
And with both of these players having the Frillish, one of them has easier access to it. Oceanic Gloom denying item cards. We often see that in the form of Budu with Itchy Pollen and lots of the other decks, but Oceanic Gloom been a great addition to Gardevoird since it was released in White Flare.
Yeah, and a great addition at that, you know, basically giving Gardevoird the best medicine you can against these Dragon Ball Dusknoir decks that we're using Budu against them with great effect. Now here, get the attachment onto Ralts, and not a lot going on in that hand.
Yeah, there is a Curlier and a Technical Machine Evolution, but we'll be hoping for an Iono potentially this turn, as the Earthen Vessel kicking things off for Pedro will now get to do his own deck check. And why do we see Earthen Vessel here? It's to find those energy cards, which are so important to get into the discard pile. You see the negative effect, which we normally see on cards, is having to discard them. But actually, that's a benefit here for Earthen Vessel. It's
a benefit because you're able to power up that Psychic Embrace from Gardevoird. The ability from Psychic Embrace lets you put energies into play, as well as damage counters following along with those energies, which means you're powering up not just your attackers, but putting energies onto them, but also your Monkey Doors are getting powered up.
We just see Pedro noting down the prize cards. In a game of Pokemon, you're missing 6 of your cards at the start as they're face down to your side. As you take knockouts, you will be able to put those into your hand. But at this stage, it's really important to find out what resources might be missing. And the Curlier and Gardevoird aren't ideal. Technical Machine Evolution might become a bit of a problem. So same too to the Mew EX, which could be a useful attacker at some point. But really, you can just see how incredibly meticulous these players are to get to this stage.
Both sets of prize cards are not great. And we're typically measuring it here in who has the worst prize cards. By far, Sebastian won that competition, but looking at Pedro's prize cards, it's not going to be easy getting out that Gardevoird. Only plays one copy of the Technical Machine Evolution that is in the prize cards, meaning that that Gardevoird has to either be evolved naturally through the stages without any help, or has to be reliant upon those red candies that he also plays.
When you've got an archetype like Gardevoird that constantly evolves and changes event and an event, and it's often how easy it is to get the Gardevoird is a big factor in that, as Rare Candy, a huge item card that allows you to get into Gardevoird quicker. And if you're in a format where item lock is available, it can make it even tougher. So this event, it seems to be that hybrid, somewhere in the middle where people are leaning into a little bit of Technical Machine Evolution, a little bit of Rare Candy to have that versatility, but definitely not the easiest it's been in Gardevoird terms to get an access to a Gardevoird EX.
We see here Lily's determination along that Mystery Garden being played here, getting, you know, a new tool to be playing with in that Mega Evolution set, but most importantly, almost every single deck in the format has been using Lily's determination to great effect. When you have 6 prize cards left, you get to draw 8 cards after you shuffle your hand in. If you draw any prize cards, you draw 6. A fantastic consistency boost.
All of these evolving decks want that early game consistency. Once they're set up, they tend to do so well. Gardevoird, a deck that happily comes from behind, but when you're in a mirror match, that battle of who goes ahead, who gets the control of the board is such a big factor. And you've mentioned the slight differences between the two lists. There's not many differences at all, but one leaning slightly more aggressively, one slightly more defensively.
And we were talking very slight at that. We saw that Drifloon being discarded. Both of these players are running that Jellicent EX, which is about item locking and tool locking your opponent, right? But the differences are here that Pedro runs that Drifloon, Sebastian running that Team Evolution, and then it's just a very few amounts of cards afterwards.
And the Ralts in the active just drawing a card with Collect. The new Ralts from the Mega Evolution set has added a little bit more utility to the Gardevoird and allowing those early turn consistent attacks should you have a slower start. As the Technical Machine Evolution with that Curlier, we'll find another Curlier and a Jellicent. So Sebastian having not many options in hand, but has got access to somewhat of a board.
Yeah, a better board than we would be thinking at the start here, with not many cards to be able to help anything. Although here, still looking like if Pedro can be putting some pressure onto the board here from Sebastian, right? There's going to come that Jelly Scent now. And we have to remember, Pedro is not running bundle, Sebastian is either. So that means when the Jelly Scent goes into the active spot, none of them are able to move it.
So the Jellicent is a key component for both players, which is why they both evolved into it so soon. The Oceanic Curse, where Frillish has an attack that turns off the access to items. Oceanic Curse from Jellicent switches off items and tools being played from the hand. And as Jesper alluded to, that turns off Counter Catcher, which is the only way to gust to the bench. So by putting that in the active, you take away so many options from your opponent.
Yeah, you're basically forcing your opponents to say, okay, take this Jelly Scent out, or it's just going to stay there forever. And it also brings in a new thing where the only recovery card that is in these decks is either Super Rod or an Ice Stretcher. They both have that in common. They're item cards.
And their ace spec as well of choice is the Secret Box, so having that Jellicent in the active would completely turn off that. Each deck only has access to a singular card with that ace spec text on it, and they are incredibly powerful. Secret Box has been the best friend of Gardevoird ever since Henry Chow popularized it, along with many of the other versions of Gardevoird. You know, the name that stands out whenever you talk about Gardevoird is that man, and both these players, I'm sure, have been inspired in the past by him and taken ideas from his deck list. But it is that Secret Box being played now by Pedro. Really helps with the consistency, as it allows you to find one of each type of trainer: a supporter, an item, a tool, and a stadium. And that means Pedro's early turn here will be mighty fine.
Mighty fine indeed. You're able to get that Lily's Determination, being able to draw a lot of cards next turn. Artisan is going to be able to search out the basics, and that Rare Candy is going to be able to get that Gardevoird into play, helping Pedro massively.
Our first Gardevoird in the final here, as well as a Dark Energy committed to a Monkey Dory. And now we see the Jellicent lock up the active spot. Sebastian has a lot to do facing down this exact Pokemon as 2 energy committed. That will put 4 damage onto the Jellicent, and with that Monkey Dory on the bench, the Adrenabrain will allow that to move across into the Curlier and take a clean knockout here, using that power press of the Jellicent. The first KO here for Pedro Patusi in our LAIC final.
One step closer for the hometown hero in this final, and Sebastian already so far behind. Has that Jellicent in play, but a hand to follow along with it, that's not what he got.
Did see a Gardevoird in there, so we'll have access to that, but not... Oh, that Lily's Determination off the top. Definitely going to help get out of this situation. As we see the Gardevoird go down, is there enough energy in the discard pile too? That's another question you're going to see. Is Lily's Determination, shuffle your hand into your deck. Even when you have no hand, you can still play it, and we'll now get a fresh 8 cards. And where it looked like Sebastian was going to be drawing off the top there for the rest of the game, a draw supporter came out of nowhere.
The draw supporter came to save the day. Although we were talking to prize cards, and we constantly get to talk about it because it's going to be, you know, the whole story about this game is going to be exactly that. Now, with the Lilies to draw 8, what Sebastian is looking for is to draw these prize cards ASAP, but it's going to be difficult to do that. You only have 2 Psychic Energies in discard pile.
And we see that Secret Box drawn off of the Lilies. Won't be able to use that thanks to the Jellicent in the active, nor will that Technical Machine Devolution be viable. So it's going to be really tough to get things set up here.
Festivity Flip the Script can draw 3 cards, and what can we even get here to have any help? But 3 item cards is definitely not going to be the answer.
And with that Mystery Garden in play, this is a great addition from Mega Evolution that's allowed Gardevoird to draw cards by discarding energy. But the only way you can play it is if your hand size is lower than the amount of Psychic Pokemon you have in play, as you discard an energy and draw cards up until you have the same amount of cards as you have Psychic Pokemon in play. And without the access to the items like Ultra Ball and Secret Box, you can't get that hand size down. And so at this point, Sebastian's going to be limited to those 2 Psychic Energy that are currently in the discard pile.
And those 2 Psychic Energy are going to go onto that Jellicent, being able to use that Power Press. And besides that, the whole hand is useless at this stage because of that Oceanic Curse from Pedro's Jellicent DX here, having to attack into the opposing Jellicent DX for 80. But we do have to remember, Mike, Pedro has access to Monkey Dory.
There we go, a Power Press for 80. Just a Psychic and a Colorless to do 80 damage. If you are able to get 2 more Psychic Energy onto that Jellicent, it will do 160. But that's going to be slow going for Sebastian at this stage. As we now see the Artisan go down for Pedro. Just going to look to try and find more of those Monkey Dory and really get things going here. And there it is, the second Monkey Dory. And this is often a story of the Gardevoird mirror. Who gets ahead in the Monkey Dory battle on the bench?
Like I say, this race of Monkey Dories is definitely going to be on Pedro's side. As said, Sebastian not going to be able to have any of that monkey business going on. And efficiently here, Sebastian, if Pedro hits a Darkness Energy here, has only done 20 damage to this active Jellicent.
With 75 minutes here in the Masters final, both these players will confidently play out all of their matches as far as possible to conclusion. But you wonder if this was in the Swiss stage where we only have 50 minutes, whether something like prizing your 3 Monkey Dories would be enough to go, do you know what, I'll have better chance next game.
I think in a certain situation like this, exactly, you'd be thinking in Swiss if you want to be winning that Swiss round. Yes, but we do see the Darkness Energy here from Pedro Pertusi, and it's going to be cementing that lead.
We'll be able to move 30 damage over ×2 with those Adrenabrains. And as Sebastian attacks, it's only going to add fuel to that monkey business. As 6 damage moved across from the active. And we'll be able to attack as well. See all of that damage now, 180 damage sustained by Sebastian's Jellicent. And that's going to be 1 swing away from a knockout next turn.
1 swing away from a knockout, and Sebastian again cannot be healing this Jellicent. It also means that Pedro's going to be the one in the driver's seat, the one with the item lock going on. Is Pedro ever going to be retreating this Jellicent? No. Does he have to? No.
And there's no way to get more energy into the discard pile at this stage. That's why the Jellicent's so good in the mirror. If you can lock up the items, it really takes away options. So you can see Sebastian trying to think through what options there actually are. Earthen Vessel gets energy out of the deck. Discards energy too. You got the Ultra Balls and that secret box, the ace spec of choice.
But Mike, you can't use those.
Can't play any of them.
Just an attachment here to the active Jellicent. Once that goes down after that power press from Pedro's side, is going to be able to reuse those energies. Although, when we're looking at it from outside here, Sebastian is only running 1 Jellicent DX. When that Jellicent in the active spot goes down, or if, rather, it's not going to be able to be recovered until Pedro moves out the Jellicent EX.
With only 2 energy to play with, that's going to be tough. Hoping for some manual attachments now. That's about the only way Sebastian can confidently get rid of energy, is attach him to a Pokemon and either retreat it or let it get knocked out.
Yeah, but letting it get knocked out is not very great here. Did bench that Foolish, so can keep up that item lock on Pedro, but doing 20 damage with Yono, Shane, and Gloom versus almost an assembling army of Monkey Dory with those Adrenabrain is not going to do you any good.
Yeah, just trying to work out what the line is here. Has got plenty of cards to play with. Had a huge hand, but with the least determination, shuffled a lot of them back into the next hand. So we'll just be attacking there for another power press. Did commit an energy to the active spot. As we now see 110 damage on Pedro's Jellicent, but every Monkey Dory he put in play just reduces the sting of the Jellicent's power press by 60.
Yeah, and reducing that sting immensely here. Still looking at the best way of tackling this situation here. Now, can remove 60 as said. Not a lot of pressure on, and when you're removing that 60 damage from that Jellicent there, you know, it just feels like every single effort that Sebastian's putting into it is for nothing.
Of course, we're watching with perfect knowledge, knowing that Sebastian doesn't have access to Monkey Dory, but Pedro will be thinking about it. He'll be thinking about playing around it, knowing that Adrenabrain can very much counter a lot of this damage, so he might not even want to leave damage in play, which is typically a strategy.
Which is very smart to hear from Pedro, but you have to be thinking about it though. Sebastian chose to not use that Artisan on the last turn, which kind of gives a little bit of a wink towards maybe we're sitting against an opponent that does not have any access to Monkey Dory.
You see actually using the Professor Tiro's scenario to reset the Jellicent. And I think part of the reason there would have been to open up a bench spot too, so he can now even get more Monkey Dories on the go and heal some of that damage. So the Professor Tiro scenario, which we alluded to being vital on Sebastian's prize cards, has come in as an important tool here to take another 2 prize cards. Pedro racing ahead.
Racing ahead halfway there towards getting that game 1. Sebastian has to find an answer right now. Otherwise, this first game is going to go in the way of Brazil.
When we say locked up, I think we can definitely say that Jellicent EX from Pedro has locked up this game. The Oceanic Curse denying Sebastian from any of the resources he's wanted to play. Denying items has been a theme in the Pokemon TCG for years. We've had a lot of fun at this event talking through previous winners, and our 2018 winner had item lock in the form of a Vileplume. That was a lot of fun to find out about, and now you can see that exact effect right here. So, LAIC, history repeating itself thanks to that item lock.
Potentially repeating itself, but Sebastian on the wrong side of history here perhaps. Gonna Artisan out for that Screamtail, play the Iono, which is the perfect combat card here. Potentially able to remove some of the Monkey Dory setup that Pedro has in play here, which is gonna be the only way that Sebastian can claw his way back into this game.
Well, it's been a long journey up to now for both of these players. 14 rounds of Swiss, a top cut followed by this final. At each step of the way, more and more pressure as more and more prizing and reward is on the line. But all they'll be thinking about right now is this singular mirror match. And the strategy here for both of them, very similar. But Sebastian now behind has to find a unique route to victory, and it's going to be targeting those Monkey Dory.
And when we're speaking of route to victory, there is a little bit of a potential to Pedro to really cement it here. That Bravery Charm is going to be one of them. You are able to put damage into play with the Gardevoird here on the Jellicent, and then you're able to move it over to that Screamtail, take the knockout, get your own Screamtail into play, and take the last 2 prizes as well.
Pedro Patuzzi winning game 1 here in the final as he set his precedent with that Jellicent from the off. But it was the 3 Monkey Dory in the prize cards that at that moment Sebastian was able to finally reveal. Kept a straight face as he prize checked, but at the end there, couldn't help but laugh at it. You know, it happens to all of us at some point in the Pokemon TCG, these crazy prize cards, but none of us expect it to happen in our finals.
Sao Paulo, your local player, Pedro Pertusi, is just 1 game away.
It's going to be a good one. Gardevoird EX facing off against each other. Pedro trying to make it another victory here in Sao Paulo. Won a regional back in 2024. Has had many amazing finishes at LAIC, but never won LAIC himself. And those were the prize cards. The crowd went nuts for that.
And the crowd went nuts for it indeed. And we saw Sebastian on that first deck search, not even breaking a little smile as we've seen in the past. But that Jellicent in the active spot for Pedro was there to stay.
Both decks relying heavily on item cards. Earthen Vessel, Ultra Ball, Secret Box. Pedro was able to play all of those just before locking things up. And that left Sebastian in a rough old spot where he couldn't really find a way to set things up.
In a rough spot where Artisaning, not being able to grab that Monkey Dory and showing that high 5 there after pricing triple Monkey Dory. Sebastian shuffling up and wanting not to repeat history here. But said again, 1 game for Pedro, still 54 minutes to decide, and we could still be going to a game 3 here.
Well, as the calm before the next storm happens, Jesper, you've been in a final before, playing the Pokemon TCG. How does it feel when you win that first game to put you 1 game away from winning the whole tournament?
It gives you that excitement. It gives you extra nervousness, and you feel a lot more of that pressure that's coming to come on. And with going first here, Sebastian Lashmed is gonna try and reveal, take that pressure and move on. I do see a Secret Box, which is a fantastic start here.
Yeah, Sebastian with the Secret Box. Didn't get a chance to play it last game, but yeah, you could see Pedro, just the rush of excitement after that win there. You know, these players, during the Swiss rounds, they're very good at controlling their emotion because they know it's a long journey. But when there's 1 match, you've had a full night's sleep to wait for Championship Sunday, suddenly every game, every moment means so much more. as the first secret box here for Sebastian will allow him to set up a lot better. And look at those prize cards. That looks a bit better, doesn't it?
There's only one Monkey Dory in there this time around. We're going to have pretty much a lot better game here, Mike.
Well, we'll be doing that prize check again. And we'll be happy to see some Monkey Dory this time. And nothing too crazy in those prize cards. All of those cards there are in multiple counts in the deck.
Multiple counts in the deck, has access to all the darkness energy that he would like for these Monkey Dories. And the good part about the Monkey Dory being prized, it's at the bottom of those prize cards. So if he'd ever need to get that third Monkey Dory into play, it's going to be available here with that deck search here, looking around, making sure that we have everything of availability.
And on the other side, Pedro's starting Pheasantipity EX, not typically a card you want to put down early on in the game.
No, and not even at all in these Gardevoird mirror matches. With these Monkey Dories, with Screamtail, Pheasantipity is going to be one of these EX cards that can be so easy to knock out given the setup, right? So when you're looking at it from Pedro's side, the one Pokemon you're wishing not to start, but there are a couple, but Pheasantipity is definitely one of them. As well, it's also a Dark-type Pokemon, not a Psychic.
As we see that secret box just about concluding at this point, as the final card, the tool card, has been selected. You see an Artisan, a Lily's Determination, and an Ultra Ball. And in that hand, those two Psychic Energy held to be then discard targets for the Ultra Ball, so sequencing out this whole turn. And we mentioned before about how the game plan is really about getting the Gardevoird EX in play to allow yourself to use it. But we saw both players really prioritizing that Jellicent, and we saw exactly why that was the case. And so now, having that Ralts in the start, we can see the first decision is find the Frillish.
And find the Frillish, because if you're locking down those items, you're locking down one of the best ways for your opponent to get that Gardevoird into play. With that Team Devolution, with that Frillish in play on the bench, if Sebastian is able to go into the Jellicent next turn and use that Devolution early, which is one of his strategies, you can get to take that Gardevoird and remove it from play for one more turn.
A great little combination, and one of the most effective decks to do it against is actually the mirror, other Gardevoirs. So just one card the difference between these two decks, but it really is a vital card. It's a significant difference. The Drifloon on Pedro's side, yes, it can take big one-hit knockouts, but it's a liability once it goes down to that low HP, as we see the attachment to the active, and just going to be shuffling up here. And I think one thing that's really interesting for Sebastian's deck, has access to the Frillish, but not in the typical way we see in some of these Jellicent decks.
No, not in the typical accent way, because you have to be thinking some of these lists that we have been seeing with the Chow list has been playing Latias and Air Balloon perhaps together as well to force a turn one Frillish. Neither of these decks are going for aggressive ones.
Perhaps that's why Sebastian chose to go first here, to allow that to be a potential way to get into the game. An item lock early on, as Pedro will be doing the first deck search now. The Artisan committed by Sebastian, yes, it will help Sebastian set up, but it will be a great use card for Pedro as he checks the prize cards. 3 energy prized, which could be somewhat effective, but with the strategy both these players are going for, it might only be that dark energy which could be effective.
The dark energy, the Iono to disrupt each other. Gardevoird does not have a real engine in the deck itself. It's much reliant on setting up all the outs on the board. Has that Pheasantipity for some extra draw, has the Mew EX for the same, but not in that style as we see some of these decks like Zorark or that Charizard Pidgeot has.
As we see the Ralts committed from the Artisan. And then a Nest Ball being played there. And this will probably be that Frillish. Yep, there we go. The Frillish. We said the kind of strategy both players are going for. And this is what you often see in mirror matches. There's very similar strategies, but it's often the mid-game where the difference is really made, where you find that stability on the board. And for both these players, it will be all around those Monkey Dory. This is why we reacted so much when we saw all 3 of Sebastian's Monkey Dory prized in Game 1, because it's such a key aspect of how to get ahead in this matchup.
It is moving damage over and taking over every single position you can on that board. If you're able to take out your opponent's Jellicent before they take out yours, you're in front, as both of these players are playing just one Jellicent. So in this mirror match, having to knock out your opponent's Jellicent may be the thing that sets you apart, as well as those Monkey Dories.
and neither player has a way to retreat into the Frillish and attach an energy to the Frillish. So we'll just pass with that energy attachment to the Pheasantipity. As we mentioned, no Latiasi X, no Air Balloon. So we'll see the first item lock be Sebastian this turn as he will go into the Frillish. The question is, will it be the Jellicent, or will he opt to try and commit towards the Gardevoird at this stage?
If you can get to Rare Candy Gardevoird and get into Frillish at this point, into Jellicent at this point, that would be pretty fantastic. And I think if we're asking the questions to Sebastian, he would like both of them. But I think the utmost preference here would be that Jellicent EX.
Because if you're able to attack as well as item lock, that would really start you going far ahead, and you'd require both Gardevoird and the Jellicent to be able to do that. As we do see an Arven in hand. Arven, such a powerful supporter in the current format, as many decks contain items and tool cards.
And there's a great question here what Sebastian wants to go for. Has that Arven, has an Ultra Ball in hand, I think I saw, so you could be potentially getting that Rare Candy if you were really going for that Gardevoird this turn. Or what you could go for is to Ultra Ball into a Jellicent and use this Team Evolution after having used the Earthen Vessel on that Psychic Energy you already have in hand.
That would be amazing if we could see the Jellicent in the active spot whilst getting the Gardevoird in play. It really just depends on how many cards are in that hand, whether there's enough to discard. You've got the Earthen Vessel and the Ultra Ball there. Should be just about enough to get going here.
There is exactly enough in that hand, Mike. You can get 2 energies off it here. You can actually go ahead into that Frillish and use that Team Evolution if you want. Or actually, excuse me, you can go ahead and Ultra Ball yourself into a Jellicent and use that Team Evolution.
But does have to get rid of the Technical Machine Devolution at the same time, which isn't ideal, and does mean that now that hand is looking rather thin. Does have the Lily's Determination for next turn potentially, but might be looking to use the remaining energy in conjunction with that Technical Machine Evolution to get the Gardevoird in play. So as you can see, the slower start is actually viable thanks to the item locking aspect of that Jellicent. And there it is, the Dark Energy and the Technical Machine Evolution. A Gardevoird in play, the items have been locked up, and Sebastian kicks things off with an Oceanic Curse.
An Oceanic Curse plus an evolution from that Technical Machine Evolution. Pedro, you have to try and get into a Gardevoird without access to tool cards, without the access to item cards either.
So won't be seeing a Gardevoird this turn from Pedro. So that's really put him far ahead. And we mentioned how important it was last time that Pedro got the Oceanic Curse off first. And now it is Sebastian, by choosing to go first, has found access to it even quicker.
One of the things that we were looking at from Sebastian's side of the field here did go ahead and use that Earthen Vessel. Potentially was looking at, could have been searching out that secondary Psychic Energy. Those Darkest Energies on Jellicent are not going to do great unless we get a second Frillish into play. If we get an extra Frillish into play on the Artisan next turn, you can be attaching 2 more energies to this Jellicent and then move that Darkest Energy into this discard pile spot there to be able to potentially recover that for Monkey Dory later.
Maybe just the pressure of the finals really putting Sebastian on the back foot there as he realized he didn't have enough cards to discard, and so had to hold that Dark Energy as the energy of choice. Next time would love to have put that on the Monkey Dory, but as you can see, only had 1 card left in hand, so a slight miscalculation at this point. Meanwhile, you can see on the other side, Pedro has got great access to some Pokemon, but had to do that via the curlier attack of Call Sign.
Yeah, and Call Sign not really efficient here. If we can get to a point where we can get 1 more Psychic Energy, and there's a Darkness Energy.
What a top deck. Darkness Energy off the top, so we'll be able to get the Monkey Dory online. And just pointing out to Pedro the mistake he made last turn and how he's just managed to redeem it through the top deck.
And just for Sebastian, mistake last turn, not punished here. Going to be able to use this Monkey Dory right here. Move the damage that you're going to be putting onto this Jellicent here with these Psychic Energies and discard pile. Moving 30 over to the Curlia, plus those 80 damage from the Power Press is going to be taking out this Curlia, thereby leaving the board, so Pedro cannot get a Gardevoird into play next turn.
A mirroring attack that we saw in the first game. Pedro was doing this exact strategy before. He took out the Curlia with the Jellicent on that first turn. So really are seeing a mirror match in full swing here. It makes such a difference when you're able to get the Jellicent on board. Power Press might not seem like a lot of damage when you're seeing these massive 270 HP Pokemon, but in combination with Oceanic Curse and slowing down of your opponent, it is more than enough damage to tick him away.
I mean, more than enough damage. 80 is going to turn into 110 here. Going to be using that Earthen Vessel. One more Psychic Energy in the discard pile, just like we wished for last turn. And that Darkness Energy getting eyed up. That secondary Darkness Energy for that second Monkey Dory we have in play.
And this might be the last turn for a while that Sebastian gets to use items, as Pedro will likely be putting that Oceanic Curse back on him. So being able to get 4 Psychic Energy in the discard pile before that even happens is going to be huge. Might even be able to get some more here with that hand. Ultra Ball, using all these cards that will be unplayable later on as soon as possible. And it just opens up more and more options in this early stage.
And we can see it here. Sebastian knowing there's a Frillish on that bench of Pedro's, and it's just going to be using these item cards over and over and over again, getting a Fecundipity out of deck, thinning that deck out so you don't have a lot of these resources left that you can be drawing in potentially that are going to be bad cards off an Iono. Sebastian is already looking towards that later stage of the game now.
Game 1, Pedro got an Oceanic Curse off, set up 2 Monkey Dory, and just looked far too far ahead for Sebastian to come back. And it looks to be Sebastian trying that exact strategy back at him. As we mentioned, both these players will have played the mirror match many times before, some already in this tournament. I mean, Sebastian had to play against Henry Chow of all Gardevoird players. So they are very familiar with the game plan, and it seems to be a similar strategy both of them opting to go for.
Going to be putting that first Psychic Energy onto that Jellicent. Just moving to 20 would be enough with that Power Press. Can put it up to 40 damage and be using that Monkey for full effect there. Moving that 10 damage, actually, sorry, 30 damage down. And it could be to that route, so you can open it up for 2. But you could also be using it to put more damage into play, so you can open up that Frillish for 2 Adrenaline Brains next turn.
We mentioned about 80 damage, but Power Press has the secondary effect of if you put 2 more energy onto this Pokemon, you do an extra 80 damage. So 160 to that active will be a knockout, and Sebastian takes the lead here in Game 2.
Taking what seems almost like an insurmountable lead, but we cannot stand and look at Pedro and say he's behind. That seems like it's going to be inviting Pedro right inside that door again. Pedro, the master of comebacks this tournament. A top 4 filled with comebacks. Are we able to see it this time around?
It's going to be slow going to get into that Gardevoird, but does have the Frillish ready to go on the bench. Has put the Fecundipity into the active. Maybe trying to sponge an attack here to Professor Turo's scenario. I mean, you mentioned about the brilliance of Pedro we saw before. We saw him take lines that no one was expecting, and that's really what separates these top players from the rest. When they're behind, they find a way to return into the game. And when it's a mirror match, it's oh so much more difficult to find those lines.
It's oh so much more difficult if you're sitting in Pedro's shoes right here, where you're item locked. You have a Jellicent slamming 160 damage into you. Guaranteed next turn can actually be knocking you out. With just one more Psychic Energy into play, Pedro has everything going against him.
Pedro actually aware there is a Dark Energy in Sebastian's hand as he searched for it last turn. So knows he'll have to disrupt, otherwise that Jellicent will be returning a knockout. And that's just going to be a pass there for Pedro.
We can't be seeing this Fecundipity going down this turn. Or there isn't a line where Sebastian go ahead and Scream Tail this Curlia. That's going to lead to item lockout, which is not too great here. But knocking out that Fecundipity could lead us to a spot where Pedro is not going to be able to draw into the cards, just like Gardevoird or an attacker that you'll be needing.
I mean, it's not just about taking a knockout, but it's starting to build up those Monkey Dory. There's now 2 on the bench for Sebastian that can activate Adrenabrain each turn. So really very much swinging in favor as Sebastian racing ahead, not just in prize cards, but in board state, and can still play those item cards. We were so sure looking at the board that the items are going to be locked up this turn, but Pedro has recognized a different route to victory. Maybe something to do with disruption, using that Iono to reduce the hand size of Sebastian and come back late game.
There is also a spot where this Jellicent down here on the bench is going to be able to attack into this Jellicent here. Before Sebastian. We have to remember that there's only one Jellicent in each of our decks here, which means that typically the player who hits firstly into the opponent's Jellicent is going to be off the advantage. Although Sebastian has a line here on the bench with 2 Monkey Dories that's going to be able to remove some of these damage counters, which means that all of this disruption has to go incredibly well for Pedro, and it means that we need to be seeing a Gardevoird from Pedro, but it doesn't look like anything right now.
When we speak about Iono, and it's actually Sebastian to play the first one of this game. A great card early on, as it gives you as many cards as you have prize cards remaining. So early on in the game, you'll get to see 6, and in Sebastian's case 5 here. But as the game goes on, it can be a way to pull back a victory, as both these decks don't really have a draw engine on board. So if you disrupt them down to low hand sizes, they can be incredibly limited on resources. So not only will Sebastian be thinking about going ahead now, but he'll be thinking about trying to set up to protect himself from any kind of disruption that Pedro pulls together.
We'll be thinking about any type of disruption that Pedro can be pulls up that Frillish here. And it just goes to show that that item lock you can be presenting your opponent with in these games is of the utmost importance.
So both players playing that double count of Frillish, but just the one Jellicent. And that's typically because you'll be recovering that Jellicent after it gets knocked out and evolving the next Frillish straight away. But if you get knocked out under item lock, that completely denies that route.
Yeah, there's no Lana's age, just like we saw in the Goldingo decks in the seniors of Luca Luvant. So it basically just means that whenever your Jellicent gets knocked out, it's gone for good until your opponent decides to let go of that item lock, which presumably never will happen.
And there's also the Professor Turo scenario, which can be a way to reset it too. Can be a useful solution here. And it's actually just going to be going into that Frillish and using Oceanic Gloom to item lock. But I think a lot of that was about getting the Dark Energy off of the Jellicent, able to now get that back into the hand whilst items are still available, and able to move some of that damage across with the Monkey Dories.
We mentioned it before, on the bottom of the prizes here for Sebastian, whenever we get to take prizes next time, we would have that Darkness Energy ready. And that's something that Sebastian knows. There's going to be maybe a Monkey Dory coming very, very soon, which says that, you know, having that Darkness Energy at your availability is going to help that out.
Yeah, great heads up from Sebastian to do that now before the item lock is put in place from the Oceanic Curse. As once a Dark Energy hits the discard pile, it's irredeemable under Oceanic Curse lock. And it seems like we're going to be talking about that a lot, as it is the key pivot point of this matchup, whether you have access to items and tools or not.
Are you under that curse, or are you out of the curse? Currently, we have Gloom over the board of Pedro Bertuzzi, no items being able to be played. Plays down a Monkey Dory from that Artisan. Going to play a Bravery Charm, since that is going to be target number 1. A Darkness Energy as well.
Yeah, and getting these the tool cards in play now, as only item lock with the Frillish, where Jellicent denies tools as well. The Mystery Garden, an amazing stadium that came out in Mega Evolution that allows for some more draw support whilst you have those energies in hand.
And more draw support, which is definitely something that Gardevoird was gracefully needing here. Although, when attaching that Darkness Energy to the Monkey Dory, Pedro has kind of let it go to say, okay, this Pheasantipity is going to stay in that active position. Not going to get out of it this turn. With having played the Lily, the only way to get out that Pheasantipity is either attaching from your hand and retreating naturally, or using that Professor Turo scenario.
I think we saw that secret box in the hand, as well as the Gardevoird. The secret box not usable under the Oceanic Gloom item lock, but did get the Gardevoird finally. So now can start getting those attackers set up. Needs to find a way to get as many energy in the discard pile as possible to open up options. Not actually quite sure how many energy Pedro's been able to discard in the early game here, but now does have a Monkey Dory online. Just the 2 Psychic Energy available, and I think that may have just been a pass right back to Sebastian.
And leaving that Pheasantipity stranded in the active position, discarding that Technical Machine Evolution. Sebastian Lashmet here is inching closer, trying to calculate what is the best way to map out my last remaining prize cards.
He's staring down Pedro, who has offered Pheasantipity EX in the active spot. And it's very clear that Pedro wants Sebastian to take the knockout at this stage. He's presenting it there, saying, go on, knock it out. Take some prize cards. And so Sebastian might be overthinking now, like, what is the game plan here? What are you trying to do by leaving that Pheasantipity there?
if you are to take out the Fesendipity, it basically means you have given Pedro a switch for free. Although, yes, I do understand, yes, you're going to be taking 2 prize cards, but going down to 3 prize cards is also very, very dangerous when you get into an Iono spot, Oceanic Curse, and then being able to attack with Power Press right back.
We see the Screamtail going down to the bench. A big attacker in that first game to finish it off. Has been a huge part of Gardevoird since Screamtail entered the format. And it's because of that access to the bench with Roaring Scream, such a strong attack, as it means you don't have to worry about what's in the active. As we mentioned, it seems like Pedro wants that Fesendipity to be knocked out. So maybe now Sebastian thinking, I need to go around it. I need to find a different target at this stage.
Needing to find a different target, needing to find a different plan perhaps. That Screamtail could also be just put into play since you want to be good against the upcoming Ionos, right? So if you're putting that Screamtail into play, that Artisan also being bumped can make sure that you could be picking up these last couple of prize cards. Potentially also you could be taking prize cards around the Fesendipity, although that means you have to let go of that item lock if you'd like to do so.
Interestingly, the way these stadiums have been put into play, it's been a bit of a back and forth, and I think that Artisan now is going to stick for Sebastian. And when we talk about disruption, having your Gardevoird on board as well as an Artisan available, it's often enough to secure your attackers each turn. If they're in your deck, you can find them anywhere with any hand size. So Sebastian really just setting up, not getting too aggressive. Many people at home might be watching thinking, hang on a minute, Sebastian's been able to take a knockout for a few turns now. But really prioritizing that stability rather than aggression.
You have to make sure that your board can also follow along. If you step too aggressively into a matchup, you end up losing here. Maybe go and take out this Jellicent on the bench with the Screamtail here. And if you're able to do that, Pedro loses the ability to have Jellicent in play at all.
And that could be a huge opportunity here. Just the retreat, 3 energy retreated off of that Frillish. What are you going to promote here, Sebastian? It is going to be that Screamtail. 270 HP for the Jellicent, minus the 5 already on it, as well as the damage moved right here by that Monkey Dory. And that's going to put it in range.
60 plus 160 is going to be that last remaining 160 damage into the 220. Being able to take that knockout with the Roaring Scream, bringing himself one step closer to getting us into a game 3.
Sebastian taking his 5th and, second and third prize cards. I'll have me corrected there. Has 3 prize cards remaining, and it will be that Screamtail that did so. Roaring Scream. We were talking about how powerful an attack it is to get around the Fesendipity, and it did exactly that. We mentioned how important the Jellicent is in this matchup, the Oceanic Curse, denying items. Pedro now has to go the old-fashioned way, get that Frillish back and evolve up slowly.
And having to potentially now play as if you're one of these more straight Gardevoird variants. Yes, can be taking a knockout with the Adrenaline Brain off his bench Monkey Dory onto the Screamtail. It only needs a singular damage counter. You can take that from this Fesendipity just all right. But getting after that, it means you would take in 1 out of your 6 prizes. What do you do thereafter? You don't have a staple attacker in play. You still have a Fesendipity in the active.
That's very true. And that's one of the downsides of Screamtail and Drifloon on Pedro's side, is you have to go down to such low HP to do these big numbers, and it puts them in range of being knocked out. The Professor Turo scenario, a way to get rid of this Fesendipity EX from the active spot, is such a key pivotal card for both players.
It's such a key pivotal part if we're able to hit it, but we do see it in the hand of Pedro right there. That full art Professor Turo scenario we can see on our screen here, coming up here, going to be going to play that Nest Ball, and then has to be fetching an attacker. Can't be doing the reverse plan of getting a Screamtail into play, but is thinking about that Frillish. Is going to be pondering a little bit, asking how many cards Sebastian has in hand. It also does depend on how much damage can we put into play and how can we be the most aggressive possible. We could potentially say Monkey Dory goes to Adrenaline Brain onto the Screamtail potentially, and then use your own Screamtail to take out one of Sebastian's Monkey Dory, maybe turning the tide in this monkey business sort of race.
Sebastian only has 1 Gardevoird in play as well, which in most matches is a concern. You don't want your singular Gardevoird to be a target, but not an easy knockout for Pedro at this stage.
That could technically also been open for, you know, going for Drifloon, and if you really wanted to go after a small chance here, you could have gone something like Drifloon, Bravery Charm, Counter Catcher, and knock out the only Gardevoird in play. Although that would leave you still with a lot of damage counters in play from here on the footage as well, which you could be using with the Monkey Dories to be taking out a Drifloon in that case. Meaning that wasn't probably the most high-risk plan.
You see Sebastian's left an energy on the Jellicent too, which could be quite a useful way to protect yourself from if the Gardevoird were to go down. But it's such a big target, so many resources would need to be committed to take out that Gardevoird that it just doesn't seem to be a worry for Sebastian at this stage. As you mentioned, the Monkey Dory is such a typical target in these matches, as it does seem to swing the game heavily in favor of the player who has 2, 3 Monkey Dory in play. As long as your opponent only has 1 or none at all, you tend to be ahead. And here we go, we start to see some aggression from Pedro, moving the damage across onto the screen tail, taking a knockout. So Pedro taking his first knockout here in game 2. As we hear the local fans supporting their local hero, really wanting to see him find a way back into this game. It's now on Sebastian to promote a new active Pokemon.
The new active Pokemon is going to be that Jellicent, reinstating that Oceanic Curse. Pedro no longer can play any item cards, no longer can be playing any tool cards. Still yet stuck with that Festivity in the active spot. It's going to be able to attach an energy from the hand and go ahead and retreat, presumably into something like that Scream Tail, or could it actually be into Monkey Dory if you'd like to potentially go for a Mind Bend here, but is going to go ahead, ponder about that Scream Tail, put that into the active spot, and use that as the attacker of choice for this turn.
And with that Bravery Charm tool, has got 140 HP, which opens up more HP to play with, as not going to need that full amount to be able to take the knockout, but will allow him to get in range. There's a second prize card there for Pedro. 120 damage, knockout on a Monkey Dory. And that might swing the Monkey Dory battle back in favor of Pedro at this stage.
And that Monkey Dory battle being so important in these matchups. We saw Sebastian not having access to Monkey Dory in that first game, meaning the ultimate loss of it. Now, Sebastian is winning on the front of the most Jellicent EXs in play. Now losing potentially. They're equal now on that Monkey Dory battlefield there, but Sebastian not having access to that extra Monkey Dory, have been a very few amount of cards in deck as well. We do have to remember that this Gardevoird mirror match is also a very resource-intensive one of the kind.
And you might be looking at this and thinking, Sebastian could have gone ahead way sooner and started getting aggressive and taking knockouts, but he believed that stability on board was the way to victory and has still got a lead on the prize cards. Only 3 prize cards remaining where Pedro needs 4. Often Gardevoird likes to be in that sweet spot of just behind or just ahead. Doesn't want to race too far out into the lead. And now Sebastian able to kind of stabilize the board, take some more knockouts, and maybe at this stage get within range of a victory.
Getting closer to potentially getting to that game free, although now with Pedro looking at it this way, right? We're not seeing that extra darkness energy that Sebastian would be needing to get that Monkey Door online this turn. If Pedro can get himself into that darkness energy, which you have to remember, I think actually just took that off the prize cards one of these past turns, is going to be able to do that. Puts down that second Monkey Dory, goes for that Lily's Determination. It's time to hit a darkness energy, Sebastian.
And we just saw him Ultra Ball away a rare candy and a Psychic Energy to get the Ralts, and then just shuffled that Ralt straight back in. Why might we have seen Sebastian using that Ultra Ball at this stage?
Sebastian knew that he was going to be playing a Lily's Determination, and by using that Ultra Ball, you're actually getting rid of free cards you don't want to be drawing in this stage of the game. Really high skill sequencing play here from Sebastian, noticing, I'm not going to be needing these cards, might as well get rid of them.
And having that 6th Psychic Energy in the discard, 1 in play, is pretty much fueled up now with every energy needed to do any kind of attack. So what you get in that Lily's Determination hand does get the Dark Energy, which is huge, as the Monkey Dory is back online. 2 Monkey Dories for Sebastian with Darkness Energies committed.
This is why we have to start seeing Pedro pull in some different strategies to see that all I'm counting here is 5 cards left in deck. There might also be a way where to Pedro potentially can be running Sebastian out of cards in deck. And with the Festivity, we're going to see 1, 2, 3 cards drawn, 2 cards left in deck for Sebastian now. has to, within the next coming turns, we do see the Super being able to dig back potentially up to 3 cards in deck. Was spying a bit on that Darkness Energy, Monkey Dory, and Screamtail.
Just such great recognition of what's in the deck. Needed that Super Rod to recover some resources, was counting out the deck, working out the chances of drawing into it, used that Pheasantipity and did find it. And you can see all of those decisions to thin the useless cards down throughout the end game here has allowed Sebastian to play exactly how he wants. And you can just really see how important Monkey Dory plus Dark Energy is, as they have been put back into the deck with that Super Rod. A card we've seen over the years. You can actually see Sebastian playing with quite an old version of the card. Such a useful resource managing tool to be able to put cards back into the deck.
Has had a few erratas in its time. I can say that it's a base set version of the card. It's older than Sebastian himself, but doesn't keep him off from playing it. Going to be using Psychic Embracer to put 40 damage into play that can be used by these 2 Monkey Dories.
That Psychic Embrace, the engine of the deck, finding Psychic Energy from the discard pile and attaching them to your Psychic Pokemon. And it has the negative effect of 20 damage with it, but the Monkey Dory is able to move those over to your opponent's side, so it actually becomes a benefit.
Now targeting this Pheasantipity here on the bench with the Adrenabrain took in that Screamtail from the Super Rod. This turn, going to be able to use that Power Press here onto that Screamtail right here. Take 1 prize. Then Sebastian will be down to 2, and all you could do next turn would then be use Artisan for Screamtail if Sebastian gets a knockout happen on his board, and then we can get the Pheasantipity for knockout, closing out this prize map. So Sebastian really eyeing up how to do this, and it means that if Pedro takes a knockout here, even though they may be winning prize-wise, it's actually losing on the board.
So 2 Monkey Dories apiece on both sides, pretty even at that point. And there's that INO from Pedro. He's been looking to try and go really close to the end of the game here to disrupt his opponent. But as we saw, Sebastian barely has any cards left in deck. He has the Pheasantipity EX in play, which allows him to draw even more cards should a knockout be sustained. So really, Sebastian here has played this out perfectly to play around all possible win conditions for Pedro. It just comes down to whether Pedro can be a hero like he was in his semi-final game and find an unorthodox win condition in these final moments.
That unorthodox win condition can be to stall this Pheasantipity in the active spot. Although we just saw Sebastian draw Turo and a Darkness Energy. Gonna go for that Psychic Embrace onto Gardevoird itself, leaving 60 extra damage in play, which means that on Pedro's side, you want to be building up a 4-prize turn. But it's going to be really difficult to do that when you only have 2 Monkey Dories. And I'm saying only 2 Monkey Dories, but you're going to get attacked right back from Sebastian still.
And Sebastian is bench locked right now, cannot get the Screamtail down, so doesn't have access to the win condition, requires Pedro to take a knockout. Only would he be able to do so if he finds that Professor Turo scenario. So the INO disruption will need to stick at this point, otherwise Sebastian will be out of options, and Pedro will be looking to try and take 2 big knockouts across 2 turns. So Gardevoird attack into the active.
And with Gardevoird attacking into the active, we do have Darkness Energy and Turo in hand for Sebastian. And Monkey Dory going to be able to use 3 times Adrenabrain, and is going to be able to Turo scenario up this Jellicent, go Artisan for Screamtail, and finish out this game 2, getting ourselves into game 3 for the finals of the Latin America International Championships.
Sebastian Leschmet doing it in a remarkable fashion. Stability was the key to that game. Never rushing, never going too aggressive. Just knew he was ahead from the start and kept it that way down to the final moments. So much resource management, thinning the deck down, using the Ultra Ball. We saw it in the very last moment, discarding 3 cards he didn't want to see. And even then, when Iono down to 2, drew for turn, had the Turo in hand. So amazing use of all of those skills that have allowed him to get to this final.
And it's these small differences here, Mike. The small differences that discarding these 3 cards from your hand that could be used or drawn from the Lily. And we do get to see a replay here. Such a tight and bitey game here. We do see attachments onto Monkey Dory were the name of the game with these top decks. Potentially a little bit of a wrong energy placement here, though.
Yeah, the Dark Energy meant to be going onto that Monkey Dory, but getting the Jellicent in the active early on for Sebastian really helped him stay in the lead and kept taking these big knockouts when he was ready. Not when he could, but when he was ready. And on that occasion, it was to take out the Jellicent to go down to 3 prize cards remaining. Pedro started taking knockouts in this mid-game. Despite trying to force a Pheasantipity knockout in the active, was able to then use that Screamtail to take some vital knockouts on Monkey Dory.
And we can always see from the start of the game, starting that Pheasantipity, as I mentioned, was going to be that target number 1 for those 2 last remaining prize cards. Throughout the game here, Pedro was slowly grinding back into the game. Sebastian going down to 2 prize cards here, and then Pedro playing Iono. But the 2 Adrenaline Brains onto that Pheasantipity, that Turo, that Artisan for the Screamtail was enough to wrap up that game 2 on a silver platter. And we're going to be seeing here whether or not Pedro wants to go first or second. Sebastian going first, which helped out massively in getting that Frillish first.
And I love the way Pedro was thinking at the end there. He recognized there was a route to victory. Sebastian played around that route to victory, and we are really seeing some high-class Pokemon from 2 great pilots of Gardevoird with that Jellicent. And it is the Oceanic Curse that was the story of game 1 and 2. The first player to lock up the board won the game. Will that be the case here in game 3? The winner of this will be your LAIC champion. Who's it going to be, Pedro or Sebastian?
And starting off here in game number 1, looking like Pedro told Sebastian, you could go first. That Ralts, that attachment, and just a pass over. What does Pedro have to start the game?
Well, an item lock here would be huge. Starting that Mew EX allows for a free retreat into it. Typically a hard strategy for Pedro and Sebastian is to get that early Frillish off. As we see the Lily's Determination, 8 fresh cards here for Pedro.
And 8 fresh cards from Pedro indeed is gonna need to get that Ralts. But if Pedro gets into something like Ralts, and out to a Ralts either, TM Evolution, maybe even Frillish on top so you can get both Jellicent and Curly into play, Pedro will already be so far ahead.
With 18 minutes left of this 75-minute final. Oh, a secret box there. Whoa, what a top deck.
That is the perfect card when you're thinking about, let's use Lily's Determination and try to get our perfect setup here. Even with that Earthen Vessel on top, it's going to be able to get exactly whatever he wants in this turn.
Well, now going to be doing his first deck search, and as you can see, nothing too crazy in the prize cards. Maybe one of the Frillish could be a factor. The Artisan could be something to think about. Otherwise, everything in high counts.
You could be getting Supporter for next turn. Technical Machine Evolution, Nest Ball, Artisan. With that Artisan prize, though, it's going to be a little bit of an issue getting that out. Only playing one of the Artisan, but still going to be able to use that TM Evolution. Potentially, then you have to start thinking about, do I want to get my Jellicent into play first, or do I want to get a Curly into play as well? But you also have to remember it's a Frillish prize, so potentially you're going to say, I'm going to race into a Jellicent.
Well, not only was it the player to use Oceanic Curse in both games first that won the game, it was the player that was able to use Secret Box in the early turns. And it will be Pedro now getting to use that incredible A-Spec. First the Earthen Vessel to get some energy, able to discard them now. And you can imagine the adrenaline these guys are feeling as they are in a singular game to become the champion of this very event. Secret Box for Lily's Determination, Technical Machine Evolution, and Nest Ball, and that Stadium to finish things off will be able to get the Mystery Garden.
Unfortunately, that Mystery Garden, one of these singular differences that are in this list. Sebastian playing 2 Artisan, and Pedro right now really wishing he was playing 2 Artisan, but no doubt that this Mystery Garden throughout the tournament has been a massive flip. Going for the Ralts on the Technical Machine Evolution, really valuing Gardevoird in the setup over that Jellicent.
Yeah, the decks aren't built to use Jellicent early on, or Frillish, I should say, early on, as they typically don't have a way to retreat. Mew EX is there, but the Frillish is in hand, does have the energy for it, will be able to retreat for free with Mew EX. Pedro Patusi is going to be using Oceanic Gloom on turn 1 here, and this could be a huge way to start the game.
Deck typically not built for it, but still going to be hitting here on the turn 1. And with Sebastian here, the question is going to be, how do you get a setup here without no items?
And an Ultra Ball to get rid of the Stadium. Doesn't want to give Sebastian any way out of this early turn. By locking up items, you take away a lot of the ways Sebastian can discard energy. And it'll also allow Mew EX to draw a few cards here with Restart, as we see the Oceanic Gloom. 20 damage to the routes, no items. Sebastian needs to find a second basic here. Does have some in hand, was actually holding on to that Artisan. Didn't want to give it away early on, but now under item lock is going to be struggling to set up as well.
If Sebastian is able to get into their own psychic energy here, going to be able to strike back with another Oceanic Gloom, and then we're just going to have a Oceanic Gloom war going back and forth about who can get their Monkey Dories into play afterwards.
Well, we know what time it is. It's prize check time. Sebastian, your first game had some horrible prize cards with those Monkey Dories. This time, that Technical Machine Evolution stands out as a bit of a frustrating card to prize early on, as it could be a way to get into the game. Other than that, seems fairly normal.
With the way that we had these games here, Mike, we wanted to go for that item lock a bit more aggressively, which is also nice that, I mean, both of our players have been pricing a finisher, but really valuing that item lock.
And without the Technical Machine Evolution and being under item lock, Sebastian won't be able to get into a Gardevoird this turn. Might even struggle to get into a Curlier this turn, which would be quite the challenge. But if he's able to get his own Oceanic Gloom off, that would also be the case for Pedro. Pedro wouldn't be able to evolve up quite as quickly. So an interesting back and forth with that early item lock. It really slows down both decks and their strategy. But as I mentioned before, Oceanic Curse was the key to victory for both of them. The first player to get an Oceanic Curse off won the game. And in game 3, I don't know which of them it's going to be from this current scenario.
We do already have Pedro with that Jellicent EX in hand. So if Sebastian goes for an Oceanic Gloom this turn, they'll be all right. Then you get the item lock going. But when Pedro is going to be able to then say, okay, I'll go evolve into Jellicent EX, attach an energy, and take the knockout, removing all of your item cards almost in perpetuity here, and get to take a prize card and disrupting your setup. Is that going to be okay for Sebastian? I really do doubt it.
Well, just a Iono there. Draw some more cards and does get the Monkey Dory. Unfortunately, with what we've described as the likely strategy of the Frillish this turn, might not be able to put the Dark Energy down because it's already been committed to the Frillish. So a retreat with the active Ralts into that Frillish. Does have a Bravery Charm attached as well to make it a little bit bulkier, and will now be doing an Oceanic Gloom. Both players, no item cards. What can you find this next turn?
Does get a top deck off that Curly, are going to be able to evolve into that. That's going to be splendid on Pedro's side here. Going to be able to use that Artisan. Now, we did see that Iono pretty much shuffling that Jellicent to the bottom of the deck, but going to be able to use Artisan to get his own Monkey Dory into play. Have both drawn Iono as a draw supporter, Darkness Energy, and Curly this turn. Going to be able to further the setup. Yes, not going to be able to get that knockout with the Jellicent, but still going to be a tiny tad ahead in that setup war.
As we come to the end of this final here, we had over 2,000 players here in Sao Paulo competing at our largest ever LAIC, the 8th LAIC we've had since it first was introduced in 2017. And either one of these players could become the winner of the largest LAIC in history. And at this stage, they're both locking each other out of any progress, trying to get ahead. Who is the one who's going to race ahead and take that victory?
Sebastian keeping on drawing item cards, and it doesn't look like there's a lot in the hand here, Mike. Sebastian potentially getting punished by not evolving that Ralts last turn, and we do see it again, another Curlia in hand. There's only the out for Artisan. There's no draw supporter in Sebastian's hand. Going to be checking that discard pile of Pedro's, but Pedro has Curlia in play. Can go for a second Monkey Dory this next turn and going to be able to take over the board. Again, really looking difficult for Sebastian in this game due to that item lock.
Well, there's two main goals of both of these players' deck. Get the Gardevoird in play, get the energy in the discard pile, and at that point you can pretty much do anything. And it looks like Pedro is going to be doing that quicker at this stage. But with the item lock, it really slows down both players. And at any given moment, a hand could just be full of resources that would be typically used to get that strategy on board. And that seems to be the case for Sebastian. There's only one energy in Pedro's discard pile and one in the active spot. So missing that part of the Gardevoird energy combo, and under item lock, it just becomes increasingly more difficult to do so. And with no Mystery Garden in play, which was a card discarded by Pedro earlier on, we're going to have to see manual attachments under item lock as the main way to get energy into play.
It is something that these Gardevoird decks, after the release of Mega Evolutions, have had to deal with. Playing this Lily's Determination instead of Professor's Research. Yes, it's nice when you're drawing 8 cards to start off the game, but you're not discarding any cards just like Professor's Research would.
So, Sebastian now looking to try and find something of a resource at this stage to put him in a position where he can take control, but Pedro very confidently with that Monkey Dory in combination with the Oceanic Gloom takes a knockout on the bench Ralts. There is no Ralts on the board for Sebastian. The item lock continues. Pedro looks to be in the racing seat here, going ahead. First prize card taken. Board looking stronger. Gardevoird in play. And it's at this stage that Pedro will be feeling the pressure, knowing he's in the lead.
And got that Frillish from those prize cards, going to be able to attach the third energy. We're mentioning the difficulty of getting these psychic energies into a discard pile. This Frillish has a massive rack of 3 energies of retreat cost. Can be putting that extra Frillish down on the bench right here, be retreating into it, and thereby creating even more damage for that Monkey Dory, or even just retreat this turn into something like the Gardevoird and pump on that aggression.
Gardevoird taking a knockout at this stage. We take out the Ralts on the bench, we take out the Frillish in the active spot. What do you have left, Sebastian? Just some Monkey Dories.
And the crowd sensing hometown hero Pedro Pertusi inching ever closer to this title.
And when we look back on this final, that will be the moment where Pedro will feel he's raced ahead the most. Sebastian can stabilize at this stage, but without a Ralts and without a Frillish, neither of your main targets of Jellicent and Gardevoird will not be accessible on this turn.
No access to using Mind Bend. No access to Rakandi Gardevoird. Only the measly access of being able to use Artisan to potentially get more Ralts into play. But you know what Pedro then can do? He can just go ahead and go back into that Frillish again, an item lock, and keep Sebastian locked out of the game. This singular turn of aggression was timed perfectly.
And with time edging away, 7.5 minutes left. As we reach 0 on the clock, it's the player who's ahead on prize cards that takes the victory. And at this stage, it looks like Sebastian will need to come from behind. And that option is increasingly becoming less likely. So Pedro not only will be ahead, but will be in a great position should time run out.
Coming from behind here in this spot, without no Gardevoird in play, without no Frillish in play, without any access to getting that ever so important Jellicent into play, it seems here that it's just Sebastian versus the world.
Pheasantipity EX to draw some more cards, flip the script, drawing 3 cards should a Pokemon have been knocked out in the previous turn. Now has access to a Ralts, I think had access to that Ralts in hand last turn in fact. And now wishing it was on the bench to be evolved. There is 1 Ralts down now, there's a Ralts in the discard pile. The Super Rod will be looking to get back that Frillish. As we mentioned before, both players had that Frillish prized. Pedro took it off the prize cards after that last turn knockout.
Going to be using that Super Rod here, thinking about what to get back here. Even though it seems a bit counterintuitive to be getting these psychic energies, it also is necessary for Sebastian to have something to retreat if, say, a Pheasantipity gets stuck in the active, or you need to have attachments that don't bring in any damage.
So commits that Dark Energy to the Monkey Dory on the bench. Recognizing the route to victory involves more Monkey Dory in play with Dark Energy. But Pedro just has so much control on that board. Gardevoird online, energy to play with. The Artisan is going to stay in play and going to stick in play. So we'll be looking to try and dismantle Sebastian's attempts to rebuild a board here. As the Curlier taken off that Ultra Ball, but cannot evolve this turn as those Ralts were put into play just this turn earlier ago.
Just getting on with that pass from Sebastian, getting onto Pedro's turn. Pedro has so many opportunities, even using Artisan to grab something like a Monkey Dory. If Pedro has a Darkness Energy, we can't just be seeing Frillish getting into the active spot, starting to item lock. Pedro has the luxury of time on his side. You were mentioning 5 minutes left on that clock. If these 5 minutes go out, then we play plus one more turn. And after that turn, it will be the player ahead on prizes winning.
Well, before we get there, Pedro might just race so far ahead now. He can take it within this next 5 minutes. Gets another Monkey Dory down, as you alluded to. And with this Earthen Vessel, we'll be able to find another Dark Energy. And with 2 Monkey Dory with Dark Energy in play, you have so much stability behind this Gardevoird. You can move any damage found in play across. And should you want to put more damage in play, you are able to do so with that added benefit of the sprinkles over to the other side of the board. So this Dark Energy will be going straight down onto that Monkey Dory, and the Gardevoird in play will just be continuing to set up attacker after attacker.
Continuing to set up attacker after attacker, continuing to set up prize card after prize card, inching Pedro closer. 4 prizes left, and this Jellicent, being ultra bald, is going to be able to attach 2 energies to Frillish or Jellicent after the evolution of it. Move 30 damage over to this Monkey Dory in the active. Take the knockout. Item lock. Sebastian not able to move the Jellicent. Thereby, no Gardevoird next turn.
So the Jellicent is in play now, and we are seeing the writing on the wall. Pedro feeling all of that excitement as he sees the final finish line in front of him. He just needs to execute these next few turns to perfection. As we have the Jellicent now in the active spot, damage can be moved across. Oceanic Curse has been locked in the active spot. It's been the winning play for both players in the previous 2 games, and it might be the winning play here for Pedro as he sets up Power Press. Damage in play. Will move it across with that Adrenabrain and take a huge knockout to go even further in the lead here.
Gonna be doing that double Monkey Dory. 60 damage down to that bench rolls. Power Press, 80 damage, setting up a potential 4 prize turn next turn. With something like the Professor Turo scenario and using double Monkey Dory, you could be setting up something like Fest. And there's the options galore here, putting that Curlia into play. Pedro has been setting up this game beautifully.
Just recognizing that Pheasantipity being on board for Sebastian by not taking a knockout has denied the opportunity for Sebastian to draw more cards. But you see a bit of a spring in Sebastian's step as that Lily's Determination plus 2 Monkey Dory in play has given him somewhat of a board control despite having all of his Ralts and Frillish being taken out in that previous turn. So Sebastian feeling a little bit more confident now.
Pedro is virtually guaranteed a prize on the next turn, even if Sebastian decides to move some damage away. There should still be around about the 80 damage left on that Monkey Dory in the active though, right?
He's moved it across already and is just past there. Pedro!
There's a prize there on the rolls there on the bench, which means that we're going to be able to see at least 2 prizes this turn. Iono for Pedro.
Well, there we go. That quick turn from Sebastian, recognized he didn't have much in terms of a turn outside of moving damage across and passing. And there we go. Sebastian has access to his items still, where Pedro has access to his items where Sebastian does not. And so we'll be using that Earthen Vessel, has an Ultra Ball there. The Mew EX in play will be a great way to draw up in those low hand sizes, so a bit of protection around disruption. And Pedro really just smartly taking his time in that previous turn, not taking a knockout, instead focusing on setting up that stability, which we alluded to in the last game.
Going to be using that Ultra Ball to thin out the hand entirely here. Can search out the Curlia, evolve the Ralts, restart for free, fresh cards, finning, inching closer to winning.
And it will be the most stable of boards. Curlia in play, Gardevoird in play, 2 Monkey Dory with Dark Energy, the Mew EX to help draw cards up, as we see there, the restart for 3, drawing up to a hand size of 3. And even if this Jellicent in the active does get knocked out, Gardevoird has so many options to finish off the game. So a 2 prize turn here will put Pedro in range of the win.
And using that Night Stretcher, just in case a Frillish comes out from Sebastian, just in case an Iono's being played, to use that Artisan to get the Screamtail into play. Monkey Dory is going to take a prize card. Power Press can be potentially taking another prize card this turn with the aid of another Adrenabrain, meaning that if Sebastian takes a knockout, it's going to be the same situation from the last game.
2 prize cards remaining for Pedro. Sebastian with a mountain to climb. 6 prize cards on the board. Will be looking to take a knockout. Recognizes the time is small. Needs to get ahead quickly. Takes the knockout nice and fast. It's now on Pedro to win in this turn. And he's going to be moving a little bit slower now as time has been called.
Time has been called, and due to Pedro not having drawn for their turn yet, we're in turn number 1.
And he has a way to win this turn. Can he find it? Will he be able to spot it? Just taking his time in this moment. There's a lot of pressure.
Like, he's already won the game. He's ahead on prize cards.
He needs to try and find a way to guarantee it here. And with those nerves of the final, you can imagine everything in his mind is going crazy. As that Pheasantipity EX on the bench in turn 0 here. We're now in overtime, and for everyone at home, you get a turn each. So it's Pedro's turn now. Sebastian will get 1 turn following it. And at the end of that, whoever wins or is ahead on prize cards will win the final.
There's the Artisan here, being able to get that Scream Tail here. We're going to be able to set up that knockout on the Pheasantipity.
And Psychic Embrace onto the active will leave enough damage. The Monkey Dory moves it across. Pedro, local superstar Pedro Bertuzzi wins LAIC.
Bora Brasil! Bora Pedro Bertuzzi! Hometown hero from Sao Paulo, taking the title as the Latin America International Champion with Gardevoird Jelly Scent.
A multiple regional winner. One of those regionals was here in Sao Paulo, but now can name himself an international champion. He's been to LAIC many times before, into the top 8, into the top 4, but never taken the title, and now has done so in front of the home crowd, and you can hear how much they love him, and they deserve to love him, as that was incredible performance throughout the tournament.
This is what we love about